Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided.
This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is sponsored by Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with the intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Products include Westlaw, Practical Law, and Firm Central legal practice management software for small law firms. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome. Alan Miller here with you and a return guest. It's been a while. Mike Scott, the Eagan Fire Chief. And by way of background, you were 19 years a volunteer before you became chief in 2006. And before that, you were a captain with the Dakota County Sheriff's Department. And your father, as we will see in the computer graphics, was a member of this department, and your sister was the first female member of the department. And we need members today, is that true?
That is very true, yep. It's something that we've talked about before, but it's an ongoing problem across the nation.
Now, the last time you were here, we were just opening an outlet mall. We did not have the Vikings building a huge center. We have 2 golf courses that have become residential areas. How has that affected the fire department?
So all those obviously have an impact on the fire department, and you look at taking a 10-story office building and making it a 10-story apartment building where people are cooking now in it. That changes the whole dynamics. A lot of senior facilities are being built in Eagan. That changes a lot of dynamics. I think one thing that people might lose sight of is not only are we a fire department, but we also go to rescue calls. So the greatest impact as you start adding more people in different types of facilities is the rescue calls, along with fire alarms and car fires and cooking fires. But it all has an impact on the call volume, both for police and for fire.
And it requires more personnel.
It does, and you talked about my dad being a charter member on the department, my sister being on the department, and I kind of grew up with the department. But Eagan isn't the same city it was when I was a young person. It's changed a lot.
And not only in that change, equipment has changed, and we've had a big really reconstruction area going on with the fire department. So tell us a little bit about that, because there used to be, 6 stations?
Yeah, so a long time ago they had a master plan of having 9 fire stations that might be needed in the history of the city. And what we kind of did starting in 2006 is kind of hit the restart button. Before we invested any more money on additional stations or redoing stations, we wanted to know truly how many stations would we need for the next 50 years of service for the city of Eagan, which is a little bit hard because it's looking at the crystal ball of knowing what kind of development's coming in. And really, are we going to be a paid-on-call staff or a career staff or a combination staff has an impact on how many stations you need. But we really felt that as long as we located stations strategically through the city, we could get by with less stations, which in the long run there's going to be a lot less maintenance costs.
Well, you have better equipment today than you did even in 2006.
Yeah, better equipment and a good replacement plan. So the mayor and council have done a really good job of setting up a replacement plan for our equipment because it's expensive. But the other thing is equipment has gotten a lot bigger. I always love having our antique truck, which was the first truck that we had in Eagan. It's a 1942 Chevy. It's the size of a small pickup truck. And then you look at a ladder truck, it's 50 feet long. We have to carry more equipment today. The equipment's gotten larger, so the trucks get larger. And that kind of is one of the reasons that we knew that some of the existing stations that were 20 to 50 years old weren't going to work anymore for the modern equipment.
Now, we do have some full-time fire people.
Yep, so Eagan has, we got a grant almost 3 years ago now to hire 6 full-time people. They're on during weekdays. 3 of them start at 6 in the morning and they work till 2 in the afternoon, and then 3 of them come at 10 in the morning and work till 6 in the afternoon. So what we're trying to do is cover that real critical time from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays when it's really, really hard to get volunteers.
The business hours when other people are working, and then at night when the alarms go off, and they go off in the homes of the volunteers, we can count on the volunteers to be fighting the fires.
Yeah, so traditionally what happens then is all of our volunteer firefighters wear pagers, and they're alerted when there is a call for their station, and if they're available they drive to their stations, staff a truck, and then drive to the scene. And that's another reason that it's important that the stations are located close to neighborhoods where the volunteers live. But one of the challenges we've been seeing probably for the last 11, 12 years is a decline in not only the overall number of volunteers, but how quickly people are turning over on the department. So we used to have people stay for about 20 years, was pretty common, and now we're seeing people stay for about 5 years. And your skill set really changes when you're having
really
that.
requires retraining and everything else.
Yep.
That goes along with it.
And
yeah.
even though they're volunteer staff, there's still a big cost to training somebody. When they first come on, you have to get them all the equipment that's precisely fit for them. When I started on the department, they literally had small, medium, large coats and boots, and you picked out whatever was closest. And now you have to have everybody fitted for their gear. So if they're in a fire, they're not going to get any kind of thermal burns or get injured in any way.
And they have backpacks, and they have gas masks, and they have all of those things. So we say to you who are watching, if you want to really do a service for your city, and if you really, really want some excitement in your life, get a hold of Mike Scott, and get a hold of somebody at City Hall, and consider being a volunteer fireman.
And we do have a lot of information on the city's website. There's a whole section about volunteer firefighters and what the requirements are. We provide all the training. There's some that think they have to be pre-trained, and that's not the case. There's no age limit. One of the neatest categories that we have is people like myself now that the kids are gone and they have a little bit more spare time, because probably the greatest change, and it's causing us a lot of trouble getting volunteers. People's lives are so busy. I always think back when my dad was on the fire department. Most moms were stay-at-home moms. Kids' activities were, if I wanted to play ball, I went down to the local park, and job stability was there. My dad worked for the same company for almost 40 years, and now job stability has changed a lot. Both spouses work, and kids' activities, you're going in 10 different directions. So that the time commitment is really challenging for people.
If you're a live-at-home college student, there's no reason why you can't volunteer also. Are volunteers paid in any respect?
Yeah, so a volunteer is probably a little bit of a misnomer. We kind of call our staff paid on call now, because they have the pagers, so they're kind of on call. They get paid $16 per fire call. It's not per hour, but it's $16 whether they're there for 10 minutes or 10 hours. It's $16, and then they get I believe it's $21 per training, which trainings are typically about 3 hours long. We do have the dorms as well. So when you mentioned college students, we have 6 apartments at our fire safety center on Yankee Doodle Road that single firefighters can actually live there rent-free in exchange for providing a little quicker response for us.
Something that a lot of people don't know, but Mike, for a youngster in particular going to school, and who doesn't want to live home with the folks, that's a great opportunity.
It's been a really neat program, because the other thing it allows us to do is recruit people outside of the community that might live in Burnsville or another city that has a career department, and they want to be volunteers. Well, before they couldn't join because you have to live within a distance of the fire station, but now you can join and live in our dorm.
Do we still have the fire pole where you slide down from the dorm?
Believe it or not, there's one of our stations, Station 2 on Yankee Doodle Road, does have a working fire pole. I was a little leery of that when we were building the station, but when we checked into injuries, there's less injuries on a fire pole than going down steps.
I'm not surprised. That's
Yeah, yeah.
No, I thought I'd like to be a volunteer, but the city paid me not to go near the fire department.
We're still paying you, I think, aren't we?
I think so. Please.
Yeah,
We're not that desperate.
yeah.
But yeah, you brought us a bunch of pictures.
I did.
So let's bring up some of those photos and talk about what we see on the screen there.
So this is kind of what we're here talking about today. This is our new fire station. We started construction last year about this time, and we just moved our trucks in there last Sunday. Officially, grand opening will be on June 8th from 5 to 8 p.m. It's located at 4200 Black Hawk Road, so it's at the intersection of Black Hawk and Diffley. Great prime site for us. It combined two fire stations. So Station 5, which was on Galaxy, and the original Station 1, which we're going to see pictures of in a minute, on Ron Road into this new state-of-the-art facility. It's just blocks from the freeway, so we'll have quick access to just about anywhere in the city. And that's what when I was talking about earlier, if we're only going to have 3 stations, they needed to be located in just very strategic areas. And this site was just excellent for us.
And one of the things I know that we talked about with this station, and that's a picture of when it's under construction?
Yeah, it's an aerial shot by one of the interns with the Public Works Department had a drone, so he flew over it and took some pictures of it for us. But I think
Is the depth of the station. As a matter of fact, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, there is, I believe, a senior citizens home right there.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I mentioned senior facilities earlier. When we moved in there on Monday morning, right away, the full-time crew had a call, so they were on scene within 10 seconds. And the depth is one of the things that's really important in this picture. When we see pictures in a couple minutes of the old station, that was right on Ron Road. We had to close the street down when we were backing trucks in, which is very dangerous as busy as Ron Road is. And now this one sits back far enough that when the trucks come back, they can actually turn around right in the parking lot and back into the station. So there's a lot of built-in safety features for our volunteer firefighters.
Now, I see, is it on Monday nights, training sessions, or is it my imagination?
So we train just about every Monday night and Tuesday morning. So, yeah, there's a lot of training going on. And that we set up this site because we knew we might have a lot of visitors from the senior facility up in the hill. So we actually put a couple benches that the seniors can walk down and actually watch the firefighters when they're training.
Well, let's put them to work and put uniforms on.
There you go. Maybe wax the truck.
Yeah.
And I think if we look at one of the next pictures, it'll start telling us a little bit of the story. This is a picture almost at the end of construction of the new facility.
This is a beautiful picture, by the way.
It just, C&H Architects, which is a local architectural firm out of Apple Valley, designed the facility. Traditionally, fire stations have the red lights between the bays. The LED lights nowadays are just amazing. So this has got LED strip lights between each of the garage doors. Our sign on kind of the center of the building is backlit with red LEDs. And then at night, the clock tower, which is kind of an iconic feature of the station, has a red LED glow in it. And we've gotten a lot of compliments about the looks of it.
It's a beautiful facility. And what equipment is maintained there?
So we have 2 fire engines, a ladder truck, a water rescue tow vehicle, which has all the water and ice rescue equipment, and then it tows, we have 2 boats, a smaller inflatable boat, a Zodiac boat, and then an Alumacraft boat. And then we also have a pickup and an ATV that we use primarily out at Lebanon Hills. We're out there 4 times in a week for bike accidents at the mountain bike trail. And if we maybe go to one of the next pictures, here's old Station 1. So you can see, again, this is probably 1970s, late 1970s. The ladder truck is our first ladder truck in that picture. And you can see that, in 1970s, Ron Road still isn't really busy, but you can see the size of the trucks. But you can also see that we'd have to close the road down so you can back the truck back into the station. The original fire station, built in 1963, is the low building on the right-hand side of the screen. And if we go to one of the next pictures, this is the grand opening of that particular station. So that's the original station, built in 1963.
With the original volunteers?
It's the original volunteers, so you can kind of see how not only did the stations change, but the trucks, look at the size of the trucks, and then in just the firefighters. And it was truly firemen back then. There wasn't any female firefighters until the 70s.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that's something that we don't hear a lot about. But the fact of the matter is, as a matter of fact, I was given CPR training, Sharon and I, by one of your female firefighters.
Yep.
And it's, available for women as well as men. It's an equal opportunity to serve your community.
Absolutely. We have probably about 10% of our department at any given time is female. We'd love to see that number grow. And if we go to one of the next pictures, this is the Cedar Grove neighborhood, and this is why the fire department was organized. So this is about early 1960s, and before Eagan formed a fire department, it was covered by Rosemount and Mendota Heights, and they had a house fire in the Cedar Grove area, and it took about a half hour to get a fire truck there. So that's when the fire department was established. But the point of this picture is Eagan's changed a lot from that picture.
All that vacant property is now homes.
Correct.
And/or businesses.
So that's where the volunteer model is starting to change a little bit, because you look back at a rural community when everybody knew everybody, and again, the time commitment, and it really did work to have an all-volunteer department, but that's why we slowly have started to transition to some full-time staff. If we go to one of the next pictures, this shows some of the challenges with the old stations, and one of the reasons that we knew we had to build a new station. The two bays, the center bay that has a big ladder truck and the other red truck on the far right, those bays used to house 4 trucks in the 1970s, and now you can see they hardly fit trucks anymore. The fire engine on the far right, we couldn't even open the doors all the way for the firefighters.
I was going to say, how does the volunteer get in there? There's not enough space between the wall and the door.
It was very challenging, and even where their turnout gear was, they'd have to get dressed right by trucks that were moving. Very, very dangerous. So that's, again, one of the reasons that we looked at. We knew we had to build a new facility, but instead of replacing all the stations, we decided to consolidate and try to do it as efficiently as possible. If we can go to the next picture. This is a great picture. It's old Fire Station 1 right before its closing last year. And again, it shows you that the amount of equipment that we're fitting into the new station, you'd never fit that in the old station. And
For sure.
It shows you how close you are to Ron Road. We'd have to put cones out anytime we had any kind of activities like this. Parking lot's very small. We like to do a lot of community outreach, fire prevention, open houses, and it was just about impossible at this station to have any public tours at it.
And with the amount of traffic on Ron Road, that has to impede the engines when they're going out also.
Yeah, it's a different world today. Again, Ron Road, or this station when it was built, Ron Road was actually a gravel road, and even in my time, it was a pretty quiet road. But now there was times that the fire engine would be coming out with its lights on, and people wouldn't yield the right of way to even let them get out on the road. And I think if we go to the next picture, that's us. So that kind of tells a quick snapshot of we really wanted to hit the restart button on facilities, and we're done with that now. We've got all of our stations built. So we have 3 active stations, and then we have Station 3 that has that Wilderness Run and Pilot Knob that houses the private ambulance service that covers the community. So we technically still have 4 fire stations, but 3 of them are active.
And the other one is just EMTs?
Correct, EMTs, and we also house a Salvation Army canteen truck for the South Metro. We always like to do our part to help other communities as well. So we house that there, and that's staffed by volunteers from the community.
Now, I just finished up a wonderful course at the Citizens Academy with the police department. And one of the things that I learned is when there is a call for fire, our police also have to respond.
Yeah, so
And that's taking patrol cars off and officers off the streets when we have so much more going on, particularly with the outlet mall that I mentioned and/or the Viking area that's still to come. So what can we do to alleviate that situation where the police have to respond to fire calls?
So what happens today in Eagan, and it's mostly because we're a paid-on-call fire department, and we don't know how many people are going to show up to the station at any particular time or how long it's going to take them. So the police department goes to not only all the fire calls, but they go to medicals. And there's about 4,300 medical calls a year in Eagan. That right now there's a minimum of 2 police officers, sometimes 3, our private ambulance, and they may or may not be in the community, and that's why the police department goes, that respond, and depending on the severity of the call, fire department also responds. All of our firefighters are trained to a higher level EMS training, first responder training, just because it comes in handy for everything that we're doing at fires. So we're either EMTs, medics, or first responders. Chief McDonald, police chief, and I have been talking about that something's got to give, because his call volume is growing quite a bit with all the retail growth, as you've experienced.
And he's still working with the same number of officers that he worked with a few years ago, and we have a bunch of retirements coming up there, as well as I know you have quite a few retirements coming up.
Correct. So that's one of the reasons that the city council, mayor and city council, allowed us to hire Citygate, which is a consultant group. They are studying the long-term feasibility of fire department staffing to give us some possible steps to the mayor and council of what we could do to help stabilize the staffing for the fire department, but at the same time look at what's best for Eagan for EMS rescue calls in the community. Should it be police response, fire response? And I think, probably, you can imagine 4,300 calls a year. We can't page out volunteers 4,300 times because we'd lose them. So it has to be at some point in time some small staffing at the fire stations to be able to help the police department by taking some of those EMS calls back to the fire department and allow them to go to more law enforcement related calls.
And if you have a law enforcement related call, you call 911. If you have a fire call, you call 911. If you have a physical disability call, or somebody has a heart attack, something like that, you call 911. So that's funneling a lot of things through one system also.
It really is, and like you said, I mean, with the joint dispatch center that we have in Dakota County, really any need for police, fire, or ambulance, call 911. Whether it's emergency or not emergency, call 911 and they'll sort it to the proper authorities.
So, how many full-times do you have now?
So we have 6 full-time. We try to maintain about 90 paid-on-call firefighters. The problem with that is it's not only trying to maintain that 90 number, but when you're losing 15 people a year, it's just that constant turnover and trying to get the skill set. So not only do you have enough people showing up, but they have the skill set to be able to perform the job. One
thing about Eagan, and it's one of the great things about living here, in my estimation, is the fact that the city council is really on board with the needs of the city, whether it's the police department, which is just incredibly well equipped, as I have learned from this course, the Citizens Academy, and the fire department. And equipment is so different today than it was, but they never say no to a legitimate need. And we're very lucky that way. I mean, not only are we one of the lowest taxed cities, but our city council, which has been pretty steady in terms of the people on it, have been so responsive. It's one of the things that I find that makes this a great community to live in.
Yeah, I would agree. As a department director, the mayor and city council are very supportive of our needs. And I think the other thing that they're really good at is the vision. So we know that today the fire department is working with paid-on-call staff, but what we're doing with this study is we're trying to create a long-term vision of when and if do we need to hire more career staff. I don't ever see a time in Eagan that we won't have paid-on-call staff, volunteers, because I think it's just a great makeup. I love, I'm a little bit biased because I grew up in the volunteer department, but it's great to have community involvement. Why wouldn't you want volunteers, community involvement when you can get it? But I think Eagan's getting to the point of size that we'll probably need a small full-time crew on 24/7, augmented greatly with the paid-on-call staff. And I really give the mayor and council credit for taking that big step of hiring a consultant and coming out with a long-term vision. You talk about equipment. A ladder truck is over $1 million nowadays to replace a ladder truck.
Whoa.
So, but the neat thing is, our trucks last 20 to 25 years. So it's a big investment, and it's a necessary investment to keep our ISO, which is an insurance rating, as low as it is. Eagan's got the lowest insurance rating of any city in the state of Minnesota. And that's
Is that right?
based on our equipment, our training, leadership, staffing, all those things.
So, I mean, there's a lot to be proud of, both in fire and police in this community. And we had Chief McDonald in here not too long ago talking about the same thing and how responsive the City Council has been to the needs of the department. And here we are with you, and it's the same story. But just the training. What about the equipment? Isn't there a tremendous cost for equipment for each individual firefighter?
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Alan. And that's what I was starting to refer to earlier about the cost of training a volunteer. Because a lot of times when I'm out speaking to the community about the turnover of volunteers, the comment might be, well, so what? Put more volunteers on. Just to equip a volunteer firefighter with the coats, pants, boots, all the different things that we wear is about $8,000, $7,800 to $8,000. And that doesn't include the portable radios that they get, the pagers. You start adding all this stuff, you can get up into the $10,000 range pretty quickly.
And this is for every individual firefighter.
Every individual firefighter. For our staffing study, the consultants looked at what's the actual cost per volunteer per year. It's about $15,000, which is very inexpensive. But when you're doing it times 90 or 100 people, those costs start adding up. And then if you top it off that you're losing 15 people a year, you're starting to, you're making an investment for 3-4 years, and then the person's life changes, they're too busy, they're leaving. Now we have to start all over again.
And not only that, we never had a high-rise situation in Eagan until recently. And now, for instance, right on, I guess it's Yankee Doodle, there's the old Blue Cross Blue Shield building, which is apartments. And I don't know how many stories it is, but I would guess 10.
Yeah, it's actually 11 they've added a penthouse up on top. That's their community room, if you will, an exercise room. And it really, again, people have said, well, so what? The building's always been there. Well, it changes a lot when you have offices versus there's 100 and some kitchens in there now. With 100 and some kitchens and people living there, smoking, doing things, there's a lot more opportunity for us to have to be going there. So we did a lot of training when that building was being renovated. But yeah, it changes dramatically your needs and how many people you need at a fire like that. If you can imagine bringing equipment up steps, because you're not supposed to use the elevators.
Right.
Just carrying all the heavy equipment up to the 8th floor, let's say if there's a fire, it takes a lot more people than going to a house fire.
So we have learned, number one, that we have a well-equipped department, but we need staffing. So this is a call to any of you who are watching and looking in here to perhaps give back a little bit to the community, which has given so much to us by volunteering in one way or another. There's also a great spirit of camaraderie in the department that I have witnessed, and that's important also. So what we say to you, and we thank Mike Scott, the chief of the Eagan Fire Department, come back soon, is become a part of this. And thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you, Alan. I always enjoy being here. Thank you.
Okay.